Hey. Welcome to our 26th
Holy
version.
cow.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem like 26 weeks. Yma Mat Chat. And we are today looking at the importance of verbal communication in personal and in martial arts life. Verbal communication plays a critical role, as you could well imagine, in both personal life and the practice of martial arts, serving as a bridge for understanding, collaboration, and growth. Its significance extends far beyond just exchanging words. It fosters clarity, builds trust, and strengthens relationships. And so I'm super happy. I'm Coach Les. I'm here with Mr. Yarwood, the most decorated sensei that I know. Whoop, 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 whoop.
That means you don't know too many.
Hey, come on. It's just my verbal communication. And has made such a difference in my life. And I appreciate everything that he's done to support me. And we have this video cast to support both the people on our Facebook channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X to make a difference, because we are looking to create ways in which people can view martial arts other than just fighting, punching, hitting, breaking boards, shaved heads, since both of us have them. You don't have to shave your head, just FYI. There's no orange costumes around here. And the opportunity for being able to take the skills and practices that we learn in the studio, in the dojo, whatever you would like to call it, the practice area, and how we can take those skills and put them to good use out in the world. So I'm super excited to hear how we go back and forth today. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Yarwood. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Yarwood.
Whoop, whoop. Yes, sir. So last week we talked about the nonverbal communication and how body language and whatnot sends messages, and whether we receive them or not is, we don't know for sure. But when you're using verbal communication, more than likely it's received, but it's not always necessarily received the way you may have meant it, right? If you're saying something to somebody and they hear it differently than you say it, it might cause some issues. So it's just be aware that when you're talking, people are listening, but they may not be listening exactly how you think they are. But in terms of martial arts, verbal communication is important because it builds a relationship between the instructors and the students. When I first have a new student come in to an intro, I greet them. I say hello to them. I shake their hand, look them in the eye, and I say their name. And for us as instructors, and for me in particular, when I talk to my instructors and train them, the first thing I tell them that they need to learn is the new students' names. Because when I verbally say your name to you, you know I'm speaking to you, right? It also makes it so you understand that I recognize you, I know who you are, and I'm talking directly to you and for you. And it's that it starts to build the rapport that you need with your students. It also tells them that they're important to you because you know who they are, you know what their name is. And there are times where I even ask them, like we have some adults, right? When adults start, I ask them, what would you like us to call you, right? Do we call you, like everybody calls me Mr. Yarwood, but we have like Mr. Greg, Mr. Les, Miss Sarah, Miss Caitlin, and then there's Mr. Vidine, right? So he goes by his last name. So it's just a matter of when you ask somebody what their name is and then you ask them what they want to be called, you're kind of showing that respect to them, that you are, you're going to call them by what they've asked to be called. So that right off the bat, that verbal communication is so important for them to understand who we're talking to, right? If we got, like on Tuesday, we had 24 people on the floor. If I don't communicate directly to a person by their name, they may not even know I'm talking to them. So the first thing is when I personalize it, they immediately go, "Oh, he's talking to me. I'm going to listen." Right? So it makes it's very important that when you're talking to people, they know who you're talking to. They know that you're talking to them directly. Otherwise, the receptors might not be on because they don't know if you're talking to them or not.
It is highly accurate, especially if you're having a sensitive subject and where people have filters that literally shut off their hearing when you go into that sensitive topic. And they completely miss the conversation. And in the missing of that conversation, they miss the opportunity to have a breakthrough by hearing the content of it said in a certain method or in a certain way that is different from where their filter was created from. And this is a very powerful and yet manipulative art, because many people can use silence as strong and powerful a tool as yelling. And for me, go ahead and yell all you want, right? I've come from the military. I've come from a military background. I understand that there's no missing the point when it comes at a yell. And I will hear it. I won't turn off. In fact, I pay attention at another level because I have the experience in my life of if somebody's yelling, it's because they have the experience that they weren't being heard. So the easiest way for them is to just turn the volume up. Now, that being said, I learned a very valuable lesson. As some of you that may know me, that have heard me, listen to me over the years, you knew that at one point I was at the Renaissance Festival for 13 years as Lord Lester, the wine master of the Renaissance. And the number one learning lesson, teaching lesson, coaching lesson, whatever lesson you'd like to label it as, was when I was leading a conversation from the stage. I had about 250 people in front of me, maybe a few more. And it was super loud. The joust was going on next to the pavilion, and it was incredibly loud. And so I just kept raising my voice and trying to quiet people down, and using some of the tricks that they use at the Renaissance, and a hush fell over the crowd. Hush. Well, what I didn't realize, and what I learned from a mother, was at the end of one of my shows, and I did a few in a row, this mother came up to me and said, "Hey, Lord Lester, I have a trick for you to try. When you go to quiet everybody down, just do shh, as if you were letting air out of a tire." And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "Well, think about it." And there was a lot more conversation in this. I'm doing the short version. When your mom is rocking you in her arms, a lot of times she'll be like, "Shh." And that noise, that shh, is associated with calming down, relaxing. Meditation has it, so that exhale, that noise, is often associated with calm. And for little kids, they stop their noise making. And I'm like, and she's like, "Try it. That's my test for you." So the next time it was super loud, and I'm like, "Okay, I promised I'd give it a whirl." And sure enough, that's what I did. And unbelievably, not only did it work, but I would say it worked to an extreme where people's faces all turned like, what's going on? So for me, and the importance of verbal communication is, what is it that we're delivering? What is behind it? What comes with it? And what are the memory triggers or filters again. So this is another place of filters that go off that my actions are creating. Over to you, Mr. Yarwood.
And I think too, the other side is important. Listening to what people are saying, right? Because I mean, I can give you an example of I'm teaching you, or if I was teaching Miss Denise, I said things to you guys early on, right, that you may not have picked up on until later when we were training, and I said them again, and then all of a sudden you went, you told me that before, but now it makes more sense because of something that you learned from the first time to the next time, right? So when you're the receiver of verbal communication, you don't always necessarily know what you're hearing until other context gets put into place, and then it starts to make sense. So you need to start listening for other cues, other things that put everything together, because one statement might not make sense at first, but then now you got all these other things that come around and build around it. And then you go, oh, right. That, I guess you call it the light bulb moment, where suddenly everything makes sense. Now you go back and go, okay, this is why they were saying that to me. This is what that means now. So then you kind of tie everything back together. But if you hear one thing and think one thing and then don't realize that it's not even close to what was being said because you didn't hear it the right way, that kind of changes the whole dynamic of what's going on, right? It happens a lot with me in particular, because of when I'm teaching, and Les will back me up on this. When I'm teaching, I say a lot of stuff that if you're paying attention would make sense to you, right? But if you don't know the context from which I'm coming, you're going to be like, not necessarily confused, but you just don't know what I'm talking about, right? So it's my method of teaching is such that I say pretty much the same things over and over and over again. Eventually people go, oh, wait a minute, now I get it. And then all the other times I said stuff to them, all comes rushing, like, oh, boom. Now they figured out what I'm trying to say. And it's not that I'm trying to confuse them. I'm not being like a mystic. I'm not giving riddles. It's just their experience hasn't yet caught up to what I'm trying to teach them.
And yeah, and I'm going to say it in a even simpler term, is kicking a certain way. When we kick, do we fully extend and lock our knee at the end of the kick? And if you do, and you lock it, and you click, you kind of kick it in and lock and lock and lock, that pounding, because when you kick it in, the muscles don't stop it. You're letting the bones stop it on that extension. You doesn't register until you're older with ligament damage or cartilage damage, and you suddenly go, oh, I know why my leg feels uncomfortable and swells up like a balloon, is because I'm not using my muscles to stop the kick. I'm using muscles to start the kick. And then the click goes, oh, Mr. Yarwood, my leg feels so much better when I don't have it go click all the way to the end and let my muscles loosen at the end. He's like, aha, now you get it, grasshopper.
Now you understand.
Right? And, he says, now think about it, coach. Know the fact that when you're first getting into Taekwondo or first getting into a martial art, how would I explain that? Unless you knew physiology or neurophysiology, you wouldn't understand that until it happens. And you can do it, see it, and feel it. And then I can come over and say, aha, now this is right. So there's that verbal communication that comes at the appropriate time after seeing the breakdown that causes injury in martial arts. Now think about that. There's a physical reference, a physical manifestation there. Think about all the times in conversations where we don't have the physical part. We have the emotional poking of the button on an individual. And that's happening all the time as well. So when that shows up and people start to hear that, then there is a place to be responsible for controlling it, slowing it down, eradicating it, all of those things.
Yep. It's listening. In order for people to, for the communication to happen, there's got to be, the old adage, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Right? Same thing goes with communication. If I'm talking to somebody and they're not receiving it, am I really talking to them? Who knows, right? But if they're not receiving what I'm saying, there's a breakdown. So we have to, our goal as a communicator is to be able to communicate in a way that people will receive it and understand what we're trying to say. And that's kind of where that experiential stuff comes into play. Is like, if they don't have the experience with it, they're not going to hear it. Another way we do, and it's something I also use in the police, is to de-escalate things, right? As a martial artist, I teach my kids what we do is not for fighting. It's quite the opposite. We learn what we learn so we don't have to fight. We have to understand that what we do is train ourselves physically to be able to handle a situation if we need to, but our goal is not to have to use it. So teaching about being able to control how your body works and how you control your kicking and striking and blocking is important, but also how to control this right here. Right? What you say, who you say it to, how you say things. Because if you say, for me, I'm a 5th degree black belt. If I walk around acting like I'm a 5th degree black belt and I can beat your ass and all that other, beat your whatever. If I walk around like that and run my mouth off, I'm communicating that I want to fight people. And I'm going to, at some point, run into somebody who says, okay, let's go. And that person might be bigger, faster, stronger than me, and I get my butt whooped because of my mouth, right? So I teach the kids that, we talk about bullying and whatnot, how to de-escalate a bullying situation. Like if a kid starts bullying and calling them names, they just respond with like, oh, okay, thank you. Or whatever, a phrase that makes it so that bully is like, what? Right? It de-escalates the situation because the bully's like, whoa, what? That doesn't make sense. So it just scrambles them up a little bit because they're not used to that response. They're used to the fear and the scared and all the other stuff. And when there's no fear there, the kid's just like, hey, whatever. Okay, thank you. Yes, I am fat. I'm working on losing weight. Right? They don't know what to say because if you're trying to tear somebody down and what you're saying to them is building them up, the way they respond, you're like, they don't know what to do. Right? So learning how to reverse a situation around to make it so somebody who's saying those things to you doesn't know what to say again. You've changed the whole conversation. You've changed everything about it, and you what we call in police de-escalate, where you bring it down to a level that everybody's calm, everybody can understand each other, nobody's yelling and screaming, nobody's fighting. We're figuring things out and we're learning from each other and we're talking to each other on a level that is normal. So it's important for our students to understand that when bullying happens, it's not about them. It's about the person bullying them, right? It's about that person not feeling good about themselves. So they find things to say to other people to make them feel bad too. And if you don't respond to it the way they want you to, it de-escalates that situation and changes it all. And the bully himself doesn't know how to deal with it because they've never had that happen to them before.
They're not, yeah, completely out of left field. They're not used to it. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And I think you hit so many nails on the head with what you just shared. And the only thing that I would say around any of these conversations, right, is how does one grow in that we know that we have these filters that exist for us? What are the ways in which we can grow our ability to listen? And I would instantly say, first, don't judge.
Yep.
We have one judge, at least from me as a faith-based person, there's one judge, and that's going to come a lot later. In the meantime, unless you end up in a court where there's a judge, the rest is inconsequential. It's people assessing and judging who you are as a human being, causing you to look good and avoid looking bad. And you spend your whole life running between those two posts. That being said, we can look and go, wow, a word can create a reality. And am I going to allow that word to create a reality where it disempowers, upsets who I am and what I'm committed to? And in biblical structure, there's a very powerful at least in the Christian world, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And it's a very powerful sentence. With words, we can lift somebody up. We can push them down. We can attack them, and we can defend them. Building trust with a human being, building safety and security with a human being, has you start to be responsible for self-expression, conflict resolution, and fostering an amazing, amazing opportunity to enhance, grow, nurture, fertilize that relationship. Too many people think as they get older that they know it all. And I'm telling you, if I look at how many hours of training since 2002 I've had in the world of personal training and development, I would say all of the training, all of the things that you have, all that does is give you more and 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 more access to how we misinterpret things. Back to you, Mr. Yard.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it from a standpoint when you talk about learning, it's like I've been training martial arts for 17 years. And every time I got to a new level, I thought, oh man, this is great. And I get to a new level, and all of a sudden another door opens up, and like this whole room full of things I don't know shows up, right? And then I get through that. So say I get from 2nd degree to 3rd degree black belt. And I'm like, all right, 3rd degree, this is great. I know so much about martial arts. And then the door opens, and like, holy moly, I literally just forgot more about than most people. It's like you're mind blown, right? And then you get, all right, cool, I got this. And you dig into it and you spend 3 years training as a 3rd degree and you think you got all these things down. And then 4th degree, and it's even bigger. And it's like the further down the path you go, the less you know, and the more you need to learn, right? And I think that comes with how you're dealing with people and the verbal communication you have with them. The more you talk, the less you listen, the more you think you know, the less you're going to learn, right? I'm a big fan, and we talked about this earlier. I'm a big fan of silence, right? Awkward silence is like is awesome because that's where, like, I used to do sales for real estate, and you drop a question on your client and then you just sit and wait, right? And the longer that silence happens, the more awkward it becomes. That's when all of a sudden that diarrhea of the mouth happens. Now you start to get all the information that you're looking for because people want to fill that silence. And that's typically when the learning happens. Because for me, when I'm teaching my students, right, there's a time where I just all of a sudden stop talking and just listen to them, right? And they just go, they're not sure what to do. But guess what happens? I get all those eyes right on me because, like, oh, something's coming, right? That I'll turn the music off completely and just go silent. And that's when you start to get attention from people because they're like, okay, it's quiet in here. And then they get nervous and then they go, okay, right? So it's fun for me because I love there's like this area of growth that happens because now people are focused on what you're doing because it's so quiet and they can't stand it. And the more it happens, the better it is for me. I don't know if I'm weird that way, but I love it.
No, I think I agree. And I look at when I'm on a stage leading and I stop talking and I look around and there are people that I know were on their cell phones 15 seconds earlier and they put their cell phone down and you can see because they look around like,
what I missed
is he looking at me because I'm on my phone? It's the best. It's so strategic. Yep. Oh, it's terrible. But they don't look at their phone again.
Yep, that peppered in silence is powerful.
Yes. Now,
because at some point when you're talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, people start to drone you out, right? They just stop listening to you because all you do is talk. It's more important,
especially monotone people. Oh,
yep. But I mean, I learned as a kid, I have 2 ears, 1 mouth. That's on purpose, so I can do more with these and less with this. My mom taught me that. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
And I take it one step further. We have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Therefore, we see 40%, we listen 40%, and we speak 20%.
Yep.
It's an amazingly powerful way to live life.
And when you speak, make sure what you say has value. Otherwise, you're wasting words.
And remember, it's a privilege to have somebody listening to you. It's not a requirement.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Yarwood.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation. Remember, in both realms, verbal communication is a very powerful tool that enhances understanding, nurtures relationships, and drives personal growth. For martial artists, mastering this skill is essential as mastering physical techniques, as it enables them to embody respect, discipline, and the martial way in all aspects of life. And I think there's the final thing that I would love to hear you just speak about is the key up.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think there's something for everybody to understand in this, as much as if you were at a football game, a hockey game, a basketball game, any sporting event. Key up has a place, and I'll let you share.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I can't guarantee it, but I assume everybody knows that in karate or taekwondo or whatever martial arts, we yell, right? And most people don't know why. Like, why you guys yell all the time? Well, there's a purpose to it, right? In taekwondo, in Korean, it's called the kiyap. Some people call it the chi, whatever you want to call it, but there's a purpose, and the main purpose to it is, well, I guess not for me, the main purpose, but prior to the main purpose is when we yell, I think it exudes some confidence in yourself. It builds you if you can yell in a big group of people, right? That kind of helps you feel better, right? If you yell, if you get mad and you go yell at something, right? You get all that out of you. That's important. But the main reason for us is it's breath, it's breathing. And when you're breathing, right, it's all the other functions work better. You're giving oxygen to your body. You're giving oxygen to your brain. It's enhancing everything that you do. And it's also it's to me, it is communication, right? You're communicating to your body and to other people that you're present and you're ready to go and you're doing the things that you need to do. So I encourage it in my school. I tell my kids that you don't get to yell and scream at home because mom and dad will get mad at you. But when you're here, I want you to be as loud as you can be, right? Obviously in certain times when you're supposed to, but I want you to be loud. It's important that they understand that they can express themselves that way, and nobody's judging them. Nobody's laughing at them, pointing them. They actually, if they don't do it, more kids will be looking at them like, how come you're not yelling? You should be yelling like I am. So it's kind of a we make a good time out of it as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And for me, that also it's an exhalation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it also clears my brain to focus.
Yep.
So I love that. Super great. Thank you so much, Mr. Yarwood. Thank you,
Yes,
everybody, for listening in. And we are now going to
see you on the mats.